us on this journey. This leg of the journey is going to be just as fun. But before we bring on Kristen, Susan, and Loree, I'd like to thank our sponsors. This particular exhibit was sponsored by the Loggy Dome, so thank you very much. The First Friday Food Feast was sponsored by Cyrus N. White and Martha Grace Reese. And our exhibit in the Gina Wind was sponsored by the Plum Catalyst. So thank you to all of our. And now I introduce you to Kristen.
Do I need to use this? Or would you prefer that I use it? Okay, I'm going to use it then. I'm Kristen Anderson. I am the fiber artist, the felt maker here today. I live up in Bigfork where my studio is. Thank you so much to MacRostie, everybody who put this on, and to all of you for coming today. So I'm going to talk about how the Refugia show came to be, and then I'm going to hand things off to our poets who will delight you with an amazing poem that they created. Refugia started out kind of like most of my inspired moments do in my time outdoors. That is a huge part of my creative process, and I kind of follow the pull of where my mind wants to take me when I am outside, and I had a long-term pull toward learning more about wetlands. And in that learning, which involved a lot of reading and a lot of time spent in wetlands and studies of wetlands, I came across a book, Barbara Hurd's book, Stirring the Mud. And I started reading this book, and I thought, I was an art and biology major back in the day. This book isn't sciencey enough. It's just this woman's adventure in the bogs, the wetlands, and she's just kind of creatively writing about it, which is so ironic because that's exactly what I do, except I make art. But I gave it another shot, and the word refugia was in that book, and it popped up. So refugia are these pockets of species richness amid changing environments. And when I read that word, it just really tapped me on the shoulder, and it said, pay attention to me. And I did. I trust the creative process enough to know I did need to do that. And I figured out pretty quickly why that word was so important. I was going through a time in my life where we were learning to cope with a family member, a parent, my mom, who was diagnosed with dementia. And, that's a time of, it's a lot of big stuff happening. And my time spent in the outdoors, my learning that I do in the outdoors, always has something to teach me about moving forward with the ups and the downs of life. And I could see my mom's mind in that word, refugia. My mom had these pockets of memory, of identity that were so vibrant amid her changing mind. And I thought, these narratives, I think, need to live together in these pieces. And so I dove down into the rabbit hole of learning about seasonal ponds, and I contacted the local scientist community that I kind of fostered over the years. And I asked, where are our refugia in Minnesota? And that was when seasonal ponds kind of came to the forefront there. Seasonal ponds are these fishless waters that are the wetlands in the woods. They are often the nurseries of the woods, the kidneys of the woods. And they happen to be our spaces where, very much under the radar, I would have to say, they are really some of our most biodiverse places. And when I heard all of this, I thought, I'm digging in. So I was taken into the ponds. You feel like a little kid again. You get your boots on, you get your mosquito head net on, you have your little net, you put it into the pond in the spring, and it just comes out full of amazing life. And as a biology major, you know, I was a good student, I did okay. This was a revelation. This was a wonder to me. And that part felt like being a kid too, just to experience that wonder that's in the ponds. So there was a lot of immersive learning that way. I had a lot of scientific papers thrown my way. There was a lot of great reading, a lot of back and forth with the scientific community. Because when you set the intention of honoring an ecosystem like the seasonal pond ecosystem and the cognitive ecosystem, you want to get certain things right. And the scientists, you know, a BA in biology was great, but these people who have their PhDs are pretty darn special. And so I really leaned on the scientific community, and we did a lot of tweaking to make sure, you know, the mosquito larva was in the right spot, and the tadpole shrimp was looking a little bit curious, and all the little details. So that was pretty special. I want to kind of close by talking about some of the gifts of this project. I was in past projects, I've had this time of learning about the science, this is how my brain holds information. I'll read something and it might go out the window, but if I can make it into art, I hang on to it. That's how my brain works, and I'm thankful to know that. But one of the gifts, besides the learning, was the building of community around these seasonal ponds and experiencing that wonder together. But certainly during this time of being a caregiver, and I think a lot of people can identify a caregiver at whatever level, you experience a certain level of despair with watching someone gradually say goodbye with a cognitive decline disease of dementia or Alzheimer's. And when you get your head into all this wonder, all of these learning the life cycles and learning what happens at different times, and that these ponds may dry down and then come back, and some creatures have evolved just in the pools that have dried down. That's part of their life cycle. You really get your head in the land of the living, and that is quite a balm for despair. So that was a huge gift. I'm going to close with a story that kind of echoes that a little bit. I was with my mom at my house, and we had this connection point. This is another gift, I guess. She would ask about the artwork. She had enough memory to know that I was working on something, and she's always loved the outdoors. So it became this touch point, and she was a real supporter, and we'd have these great conversations, great connection. And she was at home one day, and it was one of the first times that I was sitting with her talking, and I realized she's talking about me to me. She doesn't know it's me right now. I didn't know who I was exactly, but I've been told, just go with it, you know, and I did, and it was really going well. And I had my pieces hanging up all over the house. And she looked up, and when I was growing up, I was known as Christy. And she looked up and she very genuinely said, Christy would love these. And I thought to myself in that moment of, you know, the sad thing happening, it was a beautiful moment. And I was very grateful for that. So in each piece, you'll see that the narratives play together, because you'll have maybe the creatures, or the story of biodiversity, or the story of what's left in the ponds when they dry down. There's a lot of life in there, and each little dot represents the life that is either burrowed down or an egg waiting for the pond to, you know, fill up again. But in each story, there's neurons to represent the mind, to represent the brain swimming with each piece. So I'm going to hand things off to our amazing poets, and then maybe we have some time for questions at the end. Thank you again for coming.
Thank you all for coming, braving the weather. Some of you loved ones from far away. This has been such a gift, such an opportunity to work with Kristen and her amazing felts, and then learning about seasonal ponds that resulted in our double voice poem that we'd like to read. We've worked with other visual artists, but this has truly been a wonderful experience and very deep in terms of I've never stood in the pond over at Tioga before with a microscope and see these little critters that she's rendered so beautifully. So it was a lot of learning. And a double voice poem for us is we work individually and then we come together regularly and trade back and forth. Maybe you should move this. So it's a puzzle, building a puzzle. Our individual poems read vertically, but it also reads across. So we'd like to do that for you now. Susan, except you have to go to Susan will read hers and then I will read, and then we'll read across. So you hear a double voice poem about Refugia.
Refugia. What's disappeared is preserved in the seasonal pond. In this pocket of water, shallow and still, swim orb snails, fairy shrimp, fingernail clams, tadpole shrimp, pond snails, dragonfly nymphs, beneath the buffering canopy surrounded by down trees, green shoots, and leaves. Small, fishless Edens, resurrected by snowmelt, are fragile from climate change and human disturbance. Protect these ponds. Once they are gone, they're gone. What's disappeared in the brain scans leave deep pockets of emptiness. Reduced like the seasonal ponds, loved ones seem gone. Their stories on repeat, while food burns on the stove. We want the right boots, enough water and courage for the caregiving ascent. Ache of memory loss, the brain is like a checkerboard. White squares bear weight, black squares plunge. There's no hopscotch to solid ground. Breathe with the oxygen storage, collectors, predators, all in the pond's keep. My boots are tall enough to wade in. These felt tapestries, sheltering fingernail clams and wandering neurons, hang naturally like a canopy with its crown of trees deep within the forest, nurture us, beckon us in. These tapestries remind us to be steadfast in changing climates, to connect to loved ones and macroinvertebrates, to remember we share their air. What happens to them happens to us.
Refugia. Those places that remain for refugees of the last collapse after advance and retreat of ancient ice, where glacial outwash left from melting carved kettle holes, shallow hollows scoured by glacial action, remaining within this dazzling diversity. These delicate marbles in tiny pools teeming, clam shrimp dancing, now threatened. As though in a dream, giant beasts emerge unbidden from the forest floor from deep time. They walk beside me in warning as they lumber toward extinction. We watch the unraveling of seasons, surroundings of someone we love, and the distinction between personal loss and the loss of our common home place blurs, disappears in a slow fading away to the thin edges of grief that tilt into sacred space where awareness and ache trace the unraveling skein of the beauty that remains. The physical fact of the felt, its heft and fibers, layers a lifetime of memories, dark neurons embedded, rolled, wet, and tangled towel filaments pair, and the crucial structures that make connections are lost. The anguish of witness, whether incremental or sudden, lost bearings, lost words, wrong names, chased by wolves across the ice, cascade in decline, until the balance tumbles to overturning and Lake Agassiz rushes north to the sea. Water brings calm, a sense of connective peace. And here by Tioga Seasonal Pond, shallow, still, and leaf-filled, with new friends who, like me, consider these incredible creatures we discover with our nets and trays as a way to cope with our personal stories and their ambiguous connection to our common looming loss. Lovingly depicted and felt, we can recenter the stories and songlines on being seen and unseen of the living earth. We can show up, attend to, walk alongside, whether pond or person, in our sliver of time. Commit to witness and honor the beauty that remains Refugia.
Refugia. What's disappeared is preserved.
Refugia, those places that remain
In the seasonal pond.
for refugees of the last collapse.
In this pocket of water,
After advance or retreat of ancient ice,
shallow and still,
where glacial outwash left from melting,
swim orb snails, fairy shrimp,
carved kettle holes, shallow hollows,
fingernail clams,
scoured by glacial action,
tadpole shrimp, pond snails,
remaining within a dazzling diversity.
dragonfly nymphs,
These delicate marvels,
beneath a buffering canopy,
in tiny pools teeming,
surrounded by down trees,
clam shrimp dancing,
green shoots and leaves,
now threatened,
small fishless Edens,
as though in a dream,
resurrected by snowmelt,
giant beasts emerge unbidden
are fragile from climate change
from the forest floor, from deep time,
and human disturbance.
and walk beside me in mourning
Protect these ponds.
as they lumber toward extinction.
Once they are gone, they're gone. What's disappeared in the brain scans
We watch the unraveling
leave deep pockets of emptiness,
of seasons, surroundings,
reduced like the seasonal ponds.
of someone we love,
Loved ones seem gone.
and the distinction between our personal loss
Their stories on repeat,
and the loss of our common home place blurs,
while food burns on the stove.
disappears in a slow fading away to the thin edges of grief
We want the right boots,
that tilt into sacred space,
enough water,
where awareness and ache
and courage
trace the unraveling skein
for the caregiving ascent.
of the beauty that remains. The physical fact of the felt,
Ache of memory loss,
its heft and fibers,
the brain,
layer a lifetime of memories.
just like a checkerboard.
Dark neurons embedded,
White squares bear weight,
rolled wet and tangled,
black squares plunge.
tau filaments pair,
There's no hopscotch
and the crucial structures
to solid
that
ground.
make connections are lost.
Breathe
The anguish of witness,
with the oxygen stores.
whether incremental or sudden,
Collectors,
lost bearings, lost words, wrong names,
predators,
chased by wolves across the ice,
all in the pond's keep.
cascade in decline,
My boots are tall enough
until the balance tumbles to overturning
to wade in.
and Lake Agassiz rushes north to the sea.
These felt tapestries,
Water brings calm,
sheltering fingernails clams,
a sense of connective peace.
and wandering neurons
Here by Tioga Seasonal Pond,
hang naturally,
shallow, still, and leaf-filled,
like a canopy
with new friends who, like me,
with its crown of trees,
consider these incredible creatures
deep within the forest,
that we discover with nets and trays
nurture us,
as a way to cope with our personal stories
beckon us in.
and their ambiguous connection to our common looming loss.
These tapestries
Lovingly depicted and felt,
remind us to be steadfast,
we can recenter the stories and song lines
in changing climates,
on being seen and unseen
to connect
with the living earth.
to loved ones and macroinvertebrates,
We can show up, attend to, and walk alongside,
to remember
whether pond or person,
we share their air.
in our sliver of time.
What happens to them
Commit to witness and honor
happens to us.
the beauty that remains. Refugia.
Thank you. I'd like to turn it back to all of you. Are there any questions that you have about whatever you can think of? Simon?
I have a question, I guess, kind of for both entities. First of all, not being an artist, I'm always just amazed that people get it from these, and you talk so eloquently, but yeah, then you produce this, and just the physical process, I'm not even sure how you do it. And then I kind of throw the same question over to the poets. It's like, how do you even do that? You know, I mean, again, to have the idea and then to somehow make it happen, and especially for someone like me who has a brain that can't make any of this kind of stuff happen. I'm just always intrigued at how people get these deep insights and longings and then actually produce something that others can appreciate.
So it's a two-part, how do you do that answer? I like that.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, there's trust in the creative process that it has something to teach. And then when it comes to the felting, felt is made with wool, water, and agitation. And then the rest is technique. So I don't know if anybody heard on the radio this morning, but I compared it to if you have an animal, like a pet, and they get a little mat, that's felt. It's just, I control it a little bit more and make it do things like this. So yeah, it's a process of laying out wool, and then the design goes on top of this bed of very fluffy, combed and sometimes dyed wool. The top layer is definitely dyed, and then I cut out little designs out of half felted wool, and then cover it all up with a cloth, get it all wet, roll it up, and begin a process of rolling and rolling and rolling and unrolling and re-rolling and unrolling and re-rolling. And you get the idea. And early on, you have to be very careful. You have to make sure that things don't move around, because they move around a lot. So you slow everything down. And then by the end, it's so tough that you're stomping on it to felt it down. You can throw it across the room if you want. It's just fine. It becomes so tough that's one of the things I really like about it. It's pretty. You can just roll the whole show up and take it into the MacRostie and hand it off to them. It's pretty nice that way. So each one of these could be a rug if you wanted it to be. That's usually the response. Poets, we already do. Do you want to talk about your process?
And then there's that process.
And then there's that one.
Yeah.
People get it.
Loree and I have been doing double voice poems together for probably close to 15 years. And for me, I don't know what it's like for Loree, but I'm really relaxed because Loree is very forgiving. You know, we work back and forth across the page, and neither of us hold on to anything too tightly. So that means that we can go with the flow. And Loree wrote the right-hand side first this time. Normally, I'm the antsy one and I want to get it done, so I write the vertical poem first and she responds. I found it was a lot harder to write my poem second than it is first. And that was really interesting. In fact, Loree, actually, we flipped it back and forth, left, right, left, and we'd never done that before. But I was involved in some other projects, and so she got going on this sooner. But I find that fascinating. And then working with Kristen, again, you know, there's no pressure. I found that I always do my best work when I'm not feeling any pressure from anybody. And, you know, Kristen took some of our, you know, ideas and gave us, you know, some feedback. And some of the things in my side are direct quotes. I think there are stories on repeat, food burns on the stove. I think that came directly from poetry that Kristen wrote. And frankly, Kristen could have done this show by herself. She didn't need us. She had very, very good poetry. So that's what I would say.
For me, it's like my gist of your question. Sometimes in the morning I walk and stuff. I hear stuff, but it comes out of conversations we've had, emails I go back and forth. I do a lot of reading. Kristen was talking about that too, so stuff stews around somehow. But boy, there's so many things I can't do. I don't know how you do what you do. You know, in other words, right? I just like the rhythm of words. So yeah, and working with others. I find working with others is so exciting. One of the big gifts is that then I'm accountable for producing something, and something actually happens. So that's good too.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
I think it's more of an observation in a sense than a question. It seems to me that this whole thing, your work and this, should be published. I mean, where can I, well, as far as, I mean, can I get a copy or something? But better yet, could it be published? Could it be, all put together out in the world?
I should have brought the book. I think my book's in the car. Loree made books for us, which is a combination of this work and our poetry. It's interesting. She made them. Yeah, so imagine anyway, snapshot or whatever. Snapfish or, I've never done this, so what is that? You guys know what this is. You make these online scrapbooks.
Yeah,
No,
that's
this
very
is
good.
fantastic.
Thank you.
This is incredible.
The seasonal ponds are inspiring, and I would encourage all of you, if you have these, it can be a tiny puddle almost. It can be a seasonal pond. They can be small, they can be large, they can be filled year round, they can dry up, they can refill. As I said, I hope that all of you get to see them with new eyes maybe and realize how incredible they are. And when you have these places, these refugia that are, this is where there's so much action, there's so much biodiversity, which is a true strength in an ecosystem. They're an ecosystem unto themselves. It's like, I hope that you see them with a little extra wonder.
Especially if I can just add that they're threatened, right? We all know that with degradation of wetlands and straight up politics, and also so that I guess I would just say so many people have written about the value of combining science and art, and for me the art piece goes heart, language, and emotion. So maybe there's a chance that someone like me can get with the scientific concepts and the intellectual ideas, and then it goes kind of more personal for me. And if we're lucky, maybe if it's personal, it will move us to action. And then if we join with each other, then we'll get the energy and force to really actually, and it's being done by so many around us to address, the climate crisis that we're in. So I know that the danger to Refugia was part of our consideration as we also, yeah.
Right. I mean, just the ash tree alone.
Yeah.
That's the #1 tree in these, in these wetland areas. And, there's that factor, there's a changing climate, there's, population increasing, there's political, so there's a lot of change out there. And, I think when we know something, we take care of it. If we know it, we tend to take care of it, or tend to. And I hope we all know it a little bit better after seeing the show. So. Anyone else? Yeah.
So you got a lot of factual, political stuff in there, right? So I'm sort of extending on what I said before. If it's art and science, you reach people. You talk to their heart and soul with their, their gut. So I don't know what you can keep going.
Yeah.
Add more people. Yeah. Spin-off group. Yeah. Let's do it.
More people out in the seasonal ponds experiencing it, I think the better. So, yeah, I agree. Yes.
Do you have like a favorite critter that is found?
So there's the 10. So there's 10 critters represented, but there's so many more. But these are sort of the representatives from different functional feeding groups. So these are different roles, different feeder roles in the seasonal ponds. And favorite child? Well, no. For me, I have to say there's something about the way this clam shrimp piece came together. First of all, like the clam shrimp in action, the way that it moves is just so fun. It does this little darting, like a little jumping beam throughout the pond. So it's just sort of playful, like spirited little creature. It's just fun to watch and amazing. But I think, they're like the size of a lentil, maybe about. But one thing I like about this one is how the felt just being, like the wool just being wool, works so well in this to create the little body of the shrimp. And it's just a little tuft of wool that's laying there. And like I look at that and I think that really works just, it's not wool manipulated so much, it's just it really kind of all worked together. So they've got this hard shell on both sides. It's kind of a closed creature that kind of opens up and moves in this opening and closing action. And I thought, how am I going to show that? So I thought, what if the view is like from the bottom of the pond looking up toward the sun? And so you can kind of see through it because it's a little bit transparent. So that was what happened there. And you can see all the little material that it's filtering through its body and kind of coming out on the side. I don't know, for me that one, just everything kind of came together in a way I really liked. And the neurons kind of popped on this one. So if you're wondering where the neurons are, look for these shapes. Yeah. So.
How long did the whole project take from conception to
A couple of years. Yeah, a couple of years of learning and visiting and designing and drawing and then the actual felting took place and then a couple of years, 2.5 years maybe. Yeah.
A couple of years for this whole thing. And were you working on multiple ones at the same time, or do you do
one at a time? Well, the design was kind of all together, and then I didn't design one after the other. It was all the design process was first, and then the actual felting was one at a time. So.
When you draw, do you draw to scale, or are you drawing full size?
No, I just have a book, all my drawing books look like this. There are a couple, but biodiversity I had to use a much larger one just because there's so many creatures in that one. So I did that one a little bit differently. And when I laid these, I make templates when I'm creating the felt because I want to get the shapes just right when I cut them out of the partially felted wool that becomes the design on the top. So this one was just loaded with newspaper cutouts after I laid the base wool out. So it's fun. I have quite a few photographs of just the process of making it, and that one was really a fun photo shoot. Just because it's like, nobody's gonna believe this is just nuts. But that was very helpful because when I worked with, when we were working to get the science of it right, to represent them, we moved a lot of newspaper critters around because this one needs to be in this, this direction, and this one would be doing this in the pond, and that was part of honoring them to get that right, and so that was the beautiful direction of the scientist, taking that time to do that. So, yeah. And then, so you imagine each of these pieces, they shrink about 40%. I have a studio that's quite small, so it was, so they're laid out on the floor and put together and then brought up to a standing table and rolled, and then brought back down to the floor and unrolled and re-rolled. And the felting, it changes them. They're most vibrant and detailed before the felting happens, when it's all laid out. And then I know they're going to lose some of that hard edge definition. Personally, I like that softening that happens. For me, it makes them a little bit more approachable. They're not so stark. It's fun to see that vibrancy and detail, but all the layers from the base layers, all those layers underneath come forward as the fibers entangle, and so all the colors kind of mix a little bit. So, so that they all change a lot. It's pretty fascinating. Yeah.
How has this project changed you, either personally or as an artist?
It's one more piece of learning to trust the creative process and what it has to offer. And just knowing that I really feel like what you're drawn to, there's something in your subconscious that kind of knows you need to head that way, you need that. And so learning to listen to that and trust it is really powerful. And there's been a lot gained from this, and a lot of gifts, and I'm very thankful for that. But kind of makes me excited to figure out what's next, And it's fun because I think I'm just gonna go outside and take a walk, and I think I'll figure it out. That's usually how it happens. All right, if there's no more questions, thank you so much.